In 2022, social media was flooded with AI-generated photos. Suddenly, everyone you knew, from the dog groomer to your fourth grade teacher, was a mermaid, a pirate, or a Renaissance painting. But beneath all that magic was a program trained on millions of images made by artists. So while some embraced this new tool, many others were outraged, claiming the program had stolen their style, that distinctive quality that sets you apart from everyone else. Lawsuits quickly popped up against the creators of these AI programs. And just like that, an old debate was rebooted for the 21st century. What does it mean to create original art? Hi, I'm Sarah Urist Green, and this is Crash Course Art History. Stealing an artist's work might seem straightforward, but the line between inspiration and appropriation has always been fuzzy. Let's throw it all the way back to 1506 and another art-related lawsuit at the drawing board. The German Renaissance artist Albrecht Dürer signed most of his work with his initials, A.D. He loved to find clever ways to include it in the scene, like this quaint little hanging sign. It was his special sauce, the thing that certified a print as an authentic Dürer creation. Until, that is, Italian printmaker Marcantonio Raimondi entered the picture. As a big fan of Dürer, Raimondi began making perfect copies of his work, even down to that unique signature. Naturally, Dürer was not thrilled by this. He took Raimondi to court, demanding justice. But the Venetian Senate didn't quite buy it. While they did rule that only Dürer had the right to sign his prints with A.D., Raimondi was allowed to keep making his copies. Like this one, The Expulsion from Paradise. In Dürer's version, his signature is clearly visible. And here's Raimondi's nearly identical copy, with all the requisite nakedness and shame and expulsion, but minus one important detail. The reason we might be tempted to discount Raimondi as an artist is because our perception of authenticity is often tied to originality. Now, Raimondi was a copycat, so it would be easy to say his work wasn't authentic because it wasn't original. But it was authentic, meaning he did really make it. The print is an authentic Raimondi replica of an original Dürer. It's tricky, but we're going to uncover the nuances together. See, museums have specific processes for figuring out whether an artwork was really made by who we think it was. Like, there's a reason I can't get away with buying a print of a girl with a pearl earring and selling it as my own. Before an artwork gets hung in a museum, it's vetted and verified by experts that keep track of the provenance, or origins and track record of every piece. Who made it, when it was made, and where it came from, every step along the way of its existence. So the process of authentication would confirm whether the work was made by Johannes Vermeer or famed art bandit Sarah Urist Green. But even that doesn't always tell the whole story. Like, if we go to the Louvre and look at these Peter Paul Rubens paintings, we're going to assume they were made by Peter Paul Rubens. And they probably were, at least partially. They certainly came out of his studio, but artist studios throughout history have been collaborative spaces, full of apprentices and assistants and students. So we can never be sure whether we're looking at a portion of the painting actually made by Rubens' hand. I mean, that's a lot of work to do on your own. And how else are you going to train the next generation? Originality can be an even tougher nut to crack. Today, there are legal protections that governments give artists against plagiarism. One of the most important is copyright, which legally determines ownership of original work. While the laws vary from country to country, in the United States, a work of art is considered copyrighted to its creator the moment it's made. You don't have to file any forms or anything. In Dürer's day, there was nothing like that. And with the invention of the printing press, it became even more common to replicate text and images willy-nilly. Sometimes an artist or author would be acknowledged in the replica, but they didn't own the copyright. That is, until cases like Dürer's began to receive attention. Still, even today, copyrights don't provide full protection from copycats. In fact, most work is allowed to be reused in parody or commentary or for scholarly purposes, something that in the US we call fair use. Like, take this famous 1942 painting, Nighthawks, by American artist Edward Hopper. It's been parodied and memed tons of times. We know these aren't the real Nighthawks. The differences are stark enough that we don't confuse it with the original. But also because the original has been vetted, verified, and authenticated as a work by Hopper. So, where's the line between an original work that parodies or builds on another and outright stealing? After all, AI art generators rely on original text prompts from users. So while the program can't pick up a paintbrush, I could prompt it to create an image of a painting of a three-toed sloth doing a kickflip over the Eiffel Tower in the style of Van Gogh. So am I the artist here, having transformed the original work sufficiently? Or am I stealing someone's style? You gonna come for me, Van Gogh? Or consider the way American artist Sol LeWitt created his wall drawings. Here's number 142, devised in 1972 and shown here on a wall at the Yale University Art Gallery. But this piece was actually drawn by another artist. The first time it was executed by Joe Watanabe, and it's been drawn by others since then. And yet, it's still considered to be an original work by LeWitt because he came up with the idea for it. LeWitt was a pioneer of conceptual art, which considers an artwork's meaning and motive, its intellectual properties, to be more important than how it's actually made. So LeWitt created really specific directions and passed them to someone else to draw. In this case, there's to be a grid of increasing vertical and horizontal, not straight lines, where the size of the wall determines the number of lines. In LeWitt's words, the idea becomes a machine that makes the art. So when a museum or buyer purchases a LeWitt, what they get is not a completed artwork, but a set of instructions with a certificate of authenticity, declaring the as-yet unmade work an original LeWitt. The work's owner can then create the drawing according to specifications in one location, and then paint it over and make it again somewhere else. LeWitt passed away in 2007, but his authentic art continues to be made and remade around the world. To LeWitt and other conceptual artists, the artist doesn't need to physically make their own work in order for it to belong to them. So LeWitt might have supported my authorship of that AI-generated Van Gogh sloth art because it was my instruction that fed the machine that made the art. And there have been plenty of other artists who've played with the boundaries of originality by centering the idea rather than the art itself. Like French artist Marcel Duchamp, who in 1917 took a porcelain urinal, tipped it on its side, and declared it a sculpture titled Fountain. He even signed a fake artist name on it, prompting us to imagine that someone named R. Mutt had constructed it. Duchamp submitted the work to a show put on by the Society of Independent Artists, who rejected it, calling it not only vulgar, but also plagiarism, because Duchamp didn't create it. But his defenders argued it was Duchamp's work, because he came up with the idea to reorient and reimagine the urinal as an original sculpture. But what happens when an artist repurposes something more recognizably artistic, like a photograph? There's a good chance you've seen this image, especially if you live in the United States. It's Shepard Fairey's famous Hope poster, which became one of the cornerstones of Barack Obama's 2008 presidential campaign. Fairey put a lot of thought into his portrayal of Obama, saying that he chose the angle because it's the most common in political portraits, and a red, white, and blue color palette to shift the conversation away from race and onto Obama's potential as an American leader. Today, the image is widely recognized as one of the most effective pieces of political art in history. But the Hope poster design was actually based on an existing photo, taken by Manny Garcia and owned by the Associated Press. The AP threatened to sue Fairey, claiming copyright infringement. Sound familiar? The AP claimed that Garcia brought his technique and skill to bear in a careful composition, choosing the exact right moment and angle for his original photo of Obama, and that Fairey hadn't altered it enough to claim fair use. Fairey, who made nearly $500,000 off the sales of merchandise bearing the image, argued that he had merely used the photo as a reference and that the Hope poster was his original work. Eventually, the two sides agreed to share rights to the Hope artwork. That settled the lawsuit, but it also underscored how unsettled discussions of originality are in the art world and beyond. Which brings us back to the current moment. AI image generators add yet another wrinkle to the centuries-long debate around what counts as original art. If a program creates something new, but it relies on the work of millions of artists to create it, is the work truly original? And if it wasn't created by a human, can it be authentic? These questions are swirling in high-profile court cases today. And it's not all that different from that old Dürer versus Raimondi showdown. It goes to show that questions of originality are never really resolved. They shift and evolve as people, cultures, and technologies do. And we can expect legal cases on AI to impact how we think about originality in art for generations to come. In our next episode, we'll dive into the wild and winding history of buying and selling art. I'll see you then. Thanks for watching this episode of Crash Course Art History, which was filmed at the Indianapolis Museum of Art at Newfields and was made with the help of all these truly original people. If you want to help keep Crash Course free for everyone forever, you can join our community on Patreon.